Trump may have saved Obama from jail time. Good afternoon. I am Doug Smith, and you are watching Filibusted Live. If you believe the mainstream media, and yes, even President Trump himself, actually, you might come to the conclusion that former President Obama will indeed be granted immunity from the Russia hoax coup. But is that really true? What does immunity look like since the laws were changed last year? This comes down to two different points and the judicial system's decision on which one applies. But there may be a twist that upends this whole thing and lands Obama in a very difficult position either way. So let's take a look at this law first and see how Obama fits into it with his actions during the 2016 elections. Okay, so on July 1st of 2024, tumbling computer. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Trump versus the United States that former presidents have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for acts within their core constitutional authority and presumptive immunity for other official duties. Only purely personal, unofficial acts may be prosecuted. Chief Justice John Roberts authored the act that ended in a 6-3 ruling, conservatives weighing that in the 6 favor, obviously. This was over Trump's efforts to expose potential election fraud during his last few months in office from his first term. That's what they were trying to charge him with, right? So here's the 4 different things that they were charging him with. 1, discussions with U.S. Justice Department officials following the election. How dare he talk to them? 2, alleged pressure on then Vice President Mike Pence to block congressional certification of Biden's win. 3, his alleged role in assembling fake pro-Trump electors to be used in the certification process. And lastly, number 4, his conduct related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by his supposed supporters. We all have our different opinions on that, but that's not the point of this story today. So we're going to move on from that topic and keep talking about what this has to do with Obama. So the decision was unprecedented, this law that went into play on in 2024, and historical, granting legal immunity from a large pool of conduct, criminal conduct. Presidents are now immune from any criminal activity while acting as president under constitutional authority. Kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. It's also retroactive, covering any presidents that came before Trump. So technically, that reach goes all the way to Obama. And Trump has this quote right here. He says it probably helps him a lot, talking about Obama, the immunity ruling, but it doesn't help the people around him at all. Good note, but it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts. There's no question about it. Dang. But he has immunity. He owes me big. Obama owes me big. That's a quote from Trump in this article right here. So the reality is that the official investigation initiated by Tulsi Gabbard is aimed at the officials under Obama, but not Obama himself. So that means James Comey, former FBI director, John Brennan, former CIA director, and James Clapper, former director of national intelligence. Note that none of these are former presidents, so gloves are off at that point. No immunity. That's the history. But the question is, does former President Obama have immunity? Chief Justice Roberts sums up the law with this quote. We conclude, and this is during the July 2024 hearing, we conclude that under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power requires that a former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office. So what are official acts? That's what we want to know, because that seems to be what this all hinges on. Whether or not they can be prosecuted depends on whether or not they were officially acting. They can be defined as any act that falls under core constitutional duty to the American public. This includes military actions, pardons, foreign affairs, appointments and or removal of officials, execution of laws, and the list goes on. There's a lot of official acts, right? Were Obama's actions official acts? White House official Harrison Fields said it like this. And this is a big quote, and I'm going to emphasize parts of it. Following the compelling case outlined by DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, which exposed clear and blatant weaponization by corrupt intelligence officials acting at the behest of the Democratic Party and likely former President Obama, the administration remains committed to conducting a thorough investigation. This effort aims to provide the American people with the truth about the extent to which former government officials worked to sabotage the Trump administration and undermine the will of the American people in a clear attempt to subvert our constitutional republic. Bottom line, that was Russiagate. Uh, this is going to be a grand jury probe, which officially means that criminal charges can be brought and those involved can be tried in a court of law. I talked a little bit more about the grand jury versus the legislation. My gosh, that word is escaping my mind. Legislative process yesterday in the video that I did live, and that was more on Epstein and everything related to that. But I did go into a little bit more detail on the difference between the two and what the grand jury means. So if you're interested in that, please go check that out. Um, and you'll get a little bit more information there. But we're going to move on and talk more about whether or not Obama is implicated in this. So this is a little bit out of a time. But ultimately, the courts are going to whether or not Obama did act within the paradigm of official duty or if it was a personal agenda. Those are the two things that I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream. It comes down to one of these two things. Was it official duty or was it personal? That's the big question. Exclusions from the new law. This kind of falls under the personal category. So it's the exclusions, right? Treason very likely is not covered under immunity, particularly because treason is often used outside of official acts just by its very nature. Once again, this will be up to the court to decide how official those acts were. And there's a lot of gray area. If a president secretly collaborated with enemies to overthrow the government, stage a coup, or otherwise disrupt the will of the American people, this would almost certainly fall out of the immunity range. However, the crazy thing about this is it still might fall under the immunity range. Treason might be immune. Like a former president might be immune to criminal charges after committing treason, depending on what the courts decide is personal or acting in the interest of the American citizens. That's just a weird one to me. And to be honest with you, I don't fully how that's going to work. So here's private and personal conduct. This includes targeting political rivals for personal gain. That sounds a little bit more like it, right? So was the Steele dossier / Russiagate targeting Trump for personal political gain? The difference will lie in whether or not the courts decide that it was done with the intention of gathering intelligence for national security matters. So was it done for the people or was it done for personal reasons? If the dossier was weaponized for a personal gain outside of national interests, that's a whole nother story. But could this all be upended? Does any of this matter? Personally, I'll give a little bit of opinion on what that means between these two. I think that it is very likely that President Obama could be implicated for utilizing or for basically weaponizing the Steele dossier against Donald Trump for personal gain, even if that personal gain meant for Hillary Clinton, because the reality is they were, hands in each other's pockets. So it was personal gain at the end of the day. That is my opinion. But the unfortunate part about that, if by unfortunate we mean we want to see Obama come to justice on this front, is that this investigation actually isn't targeting Obama. From everything that I can tell, it's not actually even targeting him. It is just targeting the people around him during that time frame. Maybe I am not getting all the information on that. Maybe I just didn't see that. So if you guys found information that states otherwise, that says, no, actually, they are going to investigate Obama, please drop in the comments or something like that and let me know, because I would love to see that. But as far as I can tell, it's not targeting him. So that's kind of it. It almost is kind of like it doesn't matter whether or not he's immune because they're not even investigating him. But there's a completely different alternate theory on the opposite end of this that is an interesting thing to think about, and it is quite a twist. And I'm going to bring up a disclaimer first real quick. What I'm about to talk about is generally considered conspiracy theory, so please keep this in mind as pure speculation. And it is a massive what if, because this is not proven technically. Okay. What if during these investigations, officials just so happened to turn up a certain birth certificate or lack thereof? What if in this hypothetical scenario, some certain country drops a surprise expose or some other action takes place, ultimately revealing that Obama never was an American citizen? Now, to be clear, See what I did there? Every mainstream media outlet has vehemently backed the Hawaiian birth certificate, but there is one person who always questioned it, and he has not forgotten. Trump never forgets. And I don't think that he has taken this back either. Pretty sure he still believes this. If this hypothetical scenario were the case, if this did happen in some crazy alternate world, right? Then what would that mean? That would mean that the US law mandates a president be a natural born citizen. Any other citizenship would contradict that constitutional requirement and retroactively delegitimize the presidency. In addition, Obama would be stripped of his former president title and theoretically could be tried as whatever he would be at that point, whatever citizen he is. I'm not sure what courts that would go to or how that would work out, but he would not be former president anymore. That is just food for thought. As always, time will tell. And as always, these things take a lot of time. Either way, I'm pretty sure that Comey, Brennan, and Clapper are probably going to be in some deep trouble here soon. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how much deep trouble they get into and where this all leads. So be patient and, well, keep searching and trying to figure out what's really going on here because it's still gray area, it's still convoluted, and we'll keep waiting to see what else comes out about the story. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, keeping it short and sweet today. We will see you tomorrow once again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And a little reminder, Troy is not going to be with us because he is on vacation, but it is still going to be the three of us, me and Ryan and Reese, and we're going to have a great time talking about, well, honestly, I don't know what yet, but we'll find something interesting. And I have a feeling something is going to happen by tomorrow that we're going to be able to talk about. So we will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have an awesome day.